The 3.5 liter EcoBoost is the best engine available in a half-ton pickup truck right now. Try to change my mind. So 470 foot-pounds of torque, 325 horsepower. There's engines out there that have a lot more horsepower but come pretty close to the amount of torque. But why is the 3.5 EcoBoost the best engine that you can get in a half-ton? Well, the reason that I feel like it is because of the torque curve. It makes so much torque at a low RPM, 470 foot-pounds at 2,500 RPM, while it makes 90% of that from 1,800 RPM all the way throughout the RPM band, where some of the bigger V8s, they make power, they make torque, but it tends to be over 3,000 RPM, which is cool, but you're burning so much more fuel. You got 8 cylinders, you got a lot of displacement, all that stuff spinning a lot faster. And to drive this truck fast, it's cheaper than it is to drive a V8 fast. When you've got a V8, you tend to drive a little bit slower, a little bit more conservative, but this truck just wants to go. Every time you drive this, every time I drive this 3.5 EcoBoost, it just wants to go. And I noticed the difference when I jump into my V8. I've got a 6.2 and a Ford F250 as well, and that engine is great, but I just cruise around a lot slower than this. And being that it's only a 3.5 liter V6, you don't get taxed as much when you get on it. Now, when you're driving it fast, no, it's not as efficient, but the way that I drive, essentially kind of flooring it a little bit, half throttle, not really flooring it, but half throttle, I'm getting 14 miles to the gallon. I cannot get that if I drove a V8 this way. If I drove a V8 this way, I'd probably get about 8 miles per gallon. So keep that in mind. Now, you probably know that these turbocharged engines, you get either Eco or Boost. Now, that is true, but keep in mind, if you were to drive a V8 this way, you'd use a lot more fuel. But keep in mind that if you put this truck in Eco mode, you can get better MPG than what the EPA has rated the truck for. I've gotten up to 24 miles per gallon in the city. I've got videos on that where I've showed that we're actually measuring the MPG, we're getting the fuel out of the pump and we're doing the math, and we're not just going off the computer. Yeah, the computer is a little bit off. It tends to over predict. It tends to predict in the favor of the truck sometimes, but I've gotten up to 24 mpg in the city just driving like 35, hitting stoplights. When you put this engine in Eco mode, I believe it's better than the cylinder deactivation that you get from other brands. This truck in Eco mode turns the turbos down quite a bit, pretty much until you absolutely need to have turbo. Now that the turbos are electronically controlled, the turbos essentially turn down in Eco mode, and then you add that with start stop, and you're able to do better than what the EPA has actually reported on this truck. And it's interesting that there's some kind of lawsuit against Ford. Somehow they're not getting what they're advertised, and it really just goes into driving conditions. It's how you are driving. It's kind of silly to think that Ford is lying about their MPG. I think they're being very fair with their reporting on their MPG, but this is, guys, the best engine. I know I did a very similar video like this with the 2.7. The 2.7 is amazing. The 2.7 EcoBoost that you can get in F-150 is amazing. It has water-cooled exhaust manifolds where this doesn't. I feel like this engine would be better if it had water-cooled exhaust manifolds. The 2.7 makes more power per cubic inch, and I believe it makes more torque per cubic inch. But the downside to the 2.7 EcoBoost is the fact that it's a 2.7. It doesn't have as much low-end torque, and it just doesn't have the overall power that the 3.5 has. 2.7 is a little bit smoother, but the 3.5 just makes more power. It's more aggressive of a drive, puts the torque down a lot better. It's faster. I think it's definitely faster than a 2.7. Now, when you get a 2.7 and you see it beats a 3.5 in a race, I think it comes down to the fact that 2.7 trucks generally are lighter trucks. Once you get all the trim involved, you're talking about 400 to 500 pounds extra in trim when you start getting into the higher trim levels, which is typically how you find a 3.5 EcoBoost. The the 2.7s, if you launch it just right, when you launch the 2.7 with everything that it's got with 4-wheel drive and brake boosting and all that, it can tend to be quicker. They're typically short wheelbases. This is a long wheelbase truck. The long wheelbase truck is going to be a little bit slower just because the drive shafts is just going to be a little bit heavier. It's just a little longer. It's a little heavier. The truck in general is heavier. Now, if it were apples to apples, we're talking same rear gear, same truck, same weight, same everything, except one had a 3.5 EcoBoost and one had a 2.7 EcoBoost. The 3.5 EcoBoost would win hands down every day. It will beat the 5.0. I think the 5.0 would beat the 2.7 if everything was apples to apples. But I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about these engines. I think the 3.5 is safe. I think a lot of people understand that the 3.5 is a safe bet. I think a lot of people still have questions about the 2.7 and is the 2.7 EcoBoost reliable? Is the 3.5 EcoBoost reliable? I think at the end of the day, we've figured out turbocharging technology. Ford's made millions of these trucks. So I think the turbocharging side of things is a safe bet. Also keep in mind that these engines, because they've made their efficiency by being smaller, they don't have to use really thin oils compared to some of the V8s. Some of the V8s have to run 5W20 oils, which is getting kind of thin. They've had oil consumption issues. I think all the manufacturers have pretty much had oil consumption issues. There has been problems with the 5.0 with oil consumption. I think they've worked those issues out. You see a lot of times when you look into forums, the 5.0 oil consumption issues are not all across the board. There tends to be a group of guys that get bad apples, and there's a group of guys that get 5.0s that don't use any oil. And I think it just comes down to the kinks of working out, going with thinner and thinner oils and changing cylinder finishing techniques and things like that. And I think they've worked them out. I think the 5.0 is okay to get right now. Definitely keep up on your oil if you had a 5.0, but with this 3.5, I've used no oil. It runs a 5W30, and 5W30 oil has more protection than 5W20 usually. So 5W30 is a stronger oil, I think, than 5W20, and I feel like a lot of the manufacturers have to go to a 5W20 with their V8s just to meet emissions and fuel economy and all that stuff. So Ford, in my opinion, is on top of their game. The 3.5 EcoBoost is pretty sick. What do you guys think about the new Power Boost EcoBoost coming out, where they've put a electric motor on the truck combined with the 3.5 EcoBoost? I think it's going to be insane. They're going to add I think well over 100 foot-pounds of torque and quite a bit of horsepower as well. And that's going to be insane. None of the other competitors are going to be able to compete with the Power Boost that's coming out on the next generation F-150. It's going to be insane. I can't wait to see that truck and what that truck can do. It's going to be extremely fast, and it's just going to be next level technology. But anyway, guys, my name is Sean. Thank you for watching DS Trucks, where we run nothing but the best, guys. 3.5 EcoBoost, the best engine that you can get in a half-ton pickup. I know I've been doing these. It's all fun. It's kind of a little bit contradictory because we've said the 2.7 is the best, and now this week the 3.5 is the best. It's just the way that I feel that week. It's whatever engine's going to be the best, but they're all great trucks. Dodge makes a great truck with the 5.7 Hemi. They got a 6.4 Hemi. That's great. GM's got a great 6.2. Obviously, I love GM 6.2. It's a great engine. It's got like 460 foot-pounds of torque, I think, at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not all brushed up on my GM content, but the 6.2 is a great engine that you can get in a GM. But I feel like the 3.5 is better. When you get this truck on the freeway going 70 miles an hour and you can get upwards of 20, 21, 22 miles per gallon on the highway, put it in the eco mode, you might even get more. Comment if you have one of these trucks, what MPG are you getting? Like I said, in a city, because of the way the truck is geared, I'm able to get 24 MPG in the city, maybe more if I really try, but the technology is next level, in my opinion, better than cylinder deactivation. But if you want all of it, if you want everything, go with the Ford, go with the EcoBoost, because you get your power, you get your efficiency, You get everything you need. Our 2018 F-150 max tow package with the 36-gallon fuel tank. I can drive this truck all day on one tank of fuel. I could get pretty far on a tank of fuel, probably over 700 miles. But anyway, guys, that's it for the video. My name is Sean. This is DS Trucks. We run nothing but the best. See you in the next one. Over and out. Have a great day.